Alright guys, so now we're going to get into using the Angular router to navigate between pages or between components. Now, I think up to this point you guys understand the structure as far as components and services go, so I think from now on we're going to use the Angular CLI to just generate our components instead of going and creating the folders and files manually. Alright, so what I want to do here is I want to have two components that we're going to generate. One's going to be the home component, which will represent the home page, and then also an about component, which will be the about page. And then I want to create some routes for those pages, and then we'll implement a navbar component to switch between the two. Alright, so what I'm going to do here is go ahead and open up my terminal, my integrated terminal in Visual Studio Code. And I just opened that by hitting Control and then the tilde character, which is to the left of the number 1. You can also go to View and then Integrated Terminal. Alright, and then what we're going to do here is generate some components. So to do that, we can do ng, G for generate, component, and then if you want to specify the components folder, we have to do components / and then whatever we want to call it. In this case, I'm going to say home. Alright, so let's run that and see what it creates for us. Okay, so what it did is it created a couple different files. Inside the components folder, it created a home folder, and then we have home component.ts, which is our main TypeScript file, a spec.ts, which has to do with testing, which we're not going to get into, an HTML file for the template, and then a CSS file. It also added it to app.module. Okay, remember we were adding them manually before, but now if we look at app.module.ts, you'll see that it actually added this line for us, and then it added it to the declarations, which is really nice. Alright, and then if we go into our home folder inside components and we click on home component TS, you'll see it sets up the class for us. It sets up the template URL, the style URL. So from now on, we're going to be working in separate HTML files rather than just right inside the component TS file. It also implements ng on init, which is a lifecycle method, and this is where you can initialize stuff, things that have to happen when your component loads. Alright, so anyway, let's go and just if we look in the home component HTML file, it's just a paragraph that says homeworks, okay, which is fine. Actually, you know what, let's just put an H1 in here, and we'll just say welcome, or welcome to home. Alright, and we'll save that. And then let's generate another component. Oops. Okay, so we're going to do, again, ng, g component, component / about. Okay, and that'll create the about component for us. And then finally, I just want to generate a navbar component. So let's say navbar. Alright, so now what we want to do is implement the router. So we're going to open up app.module.ts. Let's close that up for now. And we need to bring in the router module. So let's go up here and say import. And we're going to do router module. And we also want to bring in routes. Okay, and that's going to be from Angular / router. There we go. Alright, now we have to create our routes inside of an array. Alright, an array of objects. So we're going to do that right here above ng model. So let's say const app routes, and we're going to set that to the type of routes, which we brought in right here. Okay, and then we're just going to set that equal to an array, and then each route will have an object. So this is going to take in a path. Now for the home route, if you want just the home page, you just want to do an empty set of quotes. Okay, and then the next parameter will be the component that we want to load, which is going to be home component. Okay, and obviously you have to have that brought in like this. So that's our first route, and then let's create another one here, and we'll say path. This one is going to go to about, and we'll specify the component, which is going to be about component. Okay, so there's our routes. Now we're going to go down to the imports here. Just like we do with every other module, we have to bring in router module, except we just want to do .for root, and then we want to pass in app routes. okay, which is the variable we created up here. All right, so let's go ahead and save that. Now, if we look in our index.html file, if you're using Angular CLI, you probably already have this base href slash here. Okay, if you don't have that, go ahead and add it. But it should be added if you're using the CLI, so don't worry about it. Now, the last thing I want to do here is in the main app component, inside app component HTML, I'm not going to use the sandbox anymore. Let's get rid of that. That'll get rid of the hello world. Okay, and then we just want to put in here router dash outlet. All right, and we'll save that. And now we get welcome to home because we're on the home page and we specified home to be the home component. If I go up here and I say /about, now we get about works, and we can just change that if we want. Let's go into the about HTML and we'll just put an h1 here and we'll say about us. Save it, and there we go. All right, so we now have two different routes, the home page and the about page. Now if we want to create the navbar, let's go into our navbar HTML. And remember, we're using Bootstrap 4, I believe, right? If we look in index.html and we're loading, yeah, Bootstrap 4. So what I'm going to do is just grab a navbar real quick. And you can get this in the Bootstrap documentation if you want. But basically, it's just a light navbar. We have the brand, which just says navbar, and then we have our two links. Okay, now notice this: we have this router link. So that's what we're going to use to load the route that we used in the router. Okay, so we have slash for the home page and then /about for the about. So if we save it, nothing's going to happen because we haven't included this navbar in our application. So what we'll do is go to our main app component, appcomponent.html. And what I'll do is replace this hello from Angular, and we'll just put in, actually, you know what? Let's look at the selector of that first. In navbar component TS, you'll see that it's actually app navbar. Okay, when you generate a component, it's going to by default add app dash to your selectors, okay, to your component names. So let's make sure we do that. So we'll say app dash navbar like that. And then we'll probably want to wrap the outlet in a container div. Like that, and we'll save it. And there we go. So if we click on home, or on the home page, about brings us to about. And we can now navigate back and forth. Okay, and the only reason the navbar looks like that is because it's a small, there we go. So that looks normal. Alright, that's just the responsive version. Alright, so that's going to do it for this video. In the next video, we're going to look at using parameters in our URLs. So for instance, if we wanted to go to like user/1 or something like that, how do we grab this parameter? Alright, so we'll get into that next.